I don't know. Some opportunity came up. We might call the Lexington Catholic game.
All right.
So I got to get with my man Bew and see what he want to do. As far as that goes, and I don't
That's right,
know.
because PrepSpin's going to be to the LCA game, right?
Yeah, but he
So,
does 3 or 4 games at once.
oh yeah, he's got the Warren County stuff going on too.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I fixed it, I believe. So we're waiting on it to just kick in here. We'll just start from the top. Is that cool?
That's fine.
Man, this is nice. Clark's pumping style.
All right. All right, now we are live, everybody, and welcome into the PrepSpin Whitaker Bank Mobile Broadcast Studio. Coach Truck over here to my right, and Jared Peck joining us from his home office here today. You guys know Jared from the Herald Leader, and Jared, busy times right now with soccer, boys and girls soccer, volleyball, and football. And I know you're a busy guy. Everybody's talking about that Doug Charles story that you just put out last week. So, talk to us about everything going on with you, man. I know you're getting a lot of rave reviews from that Doug Charles story. So, interested to hear about that, especially.
Well, with the Doug Charles story, anybody who talks to Coach Charles, you
Mm-hmm.
know, gets themselves into the conversation. He can talk a little bit. I was asking him about his prostate cancer diagnosis last year, how that came about, how he handled it during the season. I'd read about it I think from Corey Bossemer, did a piece on it, a Q&A with him on that. And so I wanted to follow up on that, maybe write a little bit more. And then you get to talking to Coach Charles, and he shared some more with me. And it was, a good conversation that lasted about an hour. And so I came to him and I said, hey, I can do a larger feature story. In fact, I can do a pretty big one. I told him what was possible. I told him what we were talking about doing. And this was just after the first conversation, which lasted, like I said, an hour. So I did more interviews, and it really started to ramp up. My bosses were interested in it. And that's one of the things you have to do is you kind of have to sell that kind of story. I can't just go out and write 4,500 word stories to put in the paper. That doesn't happen. So we were able to get together a package, got a video. We spent a few weeks on it, and I talked to Coach Charles and his wife both, and I spent a lot of time at LCA just gathering and figuring out what I could include, what I couldn't include. I talked to Coach Bew at one point about it, and I had to cut his part out because there's so many moving parts to the story that I eventually ended up cutting 1,100 words out, and that's quite a lot.
Wow.
But I think what we got down to is a pretty compelling story. I think it's reached a lot of people. It's touched a lot of people. It's a thing that lots of people commented they don't expect that from the Herald Leader because the Herald Leader is known more of a left wing and maybe not as church friendly of a publication as sometimes as I don't know if that's fair or not, but there is that reputation. So this was kind of a way to touch on that audience and tell them a really good story. And Doug Charles has a very compelling story. It's hard. He's had, a life with a lot of ups and downs. But the lesson is that he's gotten through it. And, he's living a good life right now with amazingly a young adopted family and, living his dream as a high school football coach.
You know, most of the people that are around Doug Charles that know him, by passing by, nobody really ever knew that he even had cancer. So he always kind of kept that quiet. Is
He
that
did.
something that you know, I mean, like I didn't even know until your story came out personally, and I'm over there all
Right.
the time. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that he kept it fairly private, but like I said, I did see a piece of Q&A on him from, I guess it's Football DBA,
Yeah.
did it. Um, and, I just felt like, he didn't tell the team during the season. That was compelling to me, because why? And then, the moment that he did tell them was also compelling to me. And the larger story just grew out of conversations about that and became much, much bigger than just that. So that was not my original intent going in. It was something that kind of happened and he signed off on. I didn't surprise him with how big that story was. I mean, he knew what we were doing. He knew how big we were going. So I told him from the outset that it was going to be the A1 cover story on a Sunday. So, I've only gotten one or two negative comments about it because, maybe there are other figures that have been more important in Central Kentucky than Coach Charles.
Seriously?
But, well, people are always willing to complain.
You're right.
But most of the responses have been extremely positive. So that's been gratifying.
And it also goes to show you that you never know. I talked about, in passing by him quite a bit and talking to him, I never knew, that he even had that health issue. But, the whole bigger scale of this is you never know what somebody individually is going through, because a lot of times they hide what's really going on, and you only see the outsider. You see, what they post on Facebook or, social media. You don't really know what's going on with people sometimes.
Well, Facebook has a way of making everybody's life seem perfect because everybody uses their best
Right.
photographs and everybody does this and does that. And, there are, nobody's living a perfect life. And that's one of the reasons why I did this is because Charles is such an example of how, he's made mistakes. There are things in his life that are his fault and he has had to take ownership for. But he moves on. And one of the lessons from the story is that he's stayed, he's kept his faith. He's kept a positive outlook on life, and he moves forward. And one of the things that's positive about this is that when kids come to him, when his players come to him, or other people come to him, he's not judgmental about what they're going through. He's not somebody who says, "Well, you shouldn't have been doing that." He's just like how can we move forward? How can I help? What can we do? What can you do to make a better decision in the future? That's the kind of mentor he is, both on the football field and off. And that's really, again, the lesson of the story is that just about anything is you can overcome it with enough determination, faith, and perseverance.
Man, I love Coach Charles, man. I actually interacted with Coach Charles in my younger time when I first started coaching youth football. He was coaching the our Packers, man. And this dude, like, it was kind of funny talking about the Cutter Bowleys of the world. It was amazing the kids in Lexington that ended up playing for him. And, man, that dude used to wear us out, man. It'd be like this kid, it's like, oh, he's really good. We'll get him next. Wait a minute. And, yep. But, man, he's always been good, during our show and everything. He's always treated us great. Love Coach Charles. I was just out there, as a matter of fact, the other day, just getting some material for this week's game. And like you said, I never knew about the cancer till you said it. And he is just,
right.
Man, always happy, always, just, man, he makes you feel good, So shout out to Coach Charles, man.
And that's what he did for years and years. And he was just a youth league, parks and recreation football coach, both in Pikeville, where he had a Packers team, and in Ottawa, where he had a Packers team. And he was winning city championships and taking them to the national bowl events, back in 2000 and even before that, and for years. And that's all he ever did. He didn't have, he would help out with LCA. He was the ball boy for LCA for years. He would just run up and down the sideline at LCA, getting the ball and making sure the ball was back in play. He did that before he ever, took up any kind of coaching mantle. I mean, other than running the youth program. When he was running the youth program, he would volunteer on Friday nights as the ball boy. And then he got an assistant, a title during Ethan Ashley's couple of years. And then when Ashley left, they named him head coach. But before he was head coach, his resume was pretty much Idle Hour Packers, LCA middle school, and youth program. So never coached a high school game in his life until he took it up a couple of years ago.
That middle school team that he coached there at LCA, now they did some big things. No pun intended.
No, hey, they did big things, man. We watched them.
We watched them. Yeah, I think they own themselves a state championship in the middle school. I think Coach Charles has got one of those under his belt, maybe two. But,
and that made up the core of the teams that he was winning with, they just left. Yeah. That was his middle school team.
Right.
Yeah, and some of these guys that are on this team now came up through that system too. So it's, you talk about a true Doug Charles team. I mean, that's what we've got going on right now.
LCA at one point had both Jagger Burton and Walker Parks in the system. Yeah. And they played for LCA.
Yeah.
And it's like, imagine, I don't believe they would have come out on the wrong side of two championship games if one of those guys stayed around and didn't go to Douglas. But everybody makes their own decisions about things, and they made a good choice for themselves, and it's panned out for them in spades. Walker Parks was on national TV the other night on the O line, and the same with Jagger. He's starting for UK.
Yeah. Well, we got we got volleyball going on right now. I think Lexington Catholic has just punched their ticket to the 2A state championship tournament over in Owensboro. Right. Dunbar, everybody's talking about how good Dunbar is right now.
Yep.
I assume Henry Clay. I haven't looked at a whole bunch of volleyball yet, but I assume Henry Clay's probably in that mix as well. And
that's
the Jared.
I went out to. No, well, let's put it this way. Right now, the two ranked teams in the city are Dunbar and Douglas, and they played each other last week.
Okay.
Douglas was without their setter, and they had a couple players that were kind of nicked up, and that game match went 5 sets. It was a great match. I've watched a few volleyball games this year. That was the best volleyball game I've seen. I saw Dunbar beat Gray Crossing, which is the other ranked team in the region. They're like number 17. Dunbar is around number 4. Douglas is number 10. Everybody else is just kind of young this year. And so when you're young, you don't set the blocks as much. You don't get in position for the kills as much. So it's a harder go when you've got a lot of freshmen and sophomores and just a few juniors and seniors in the rotation. So right now, I mean, I think, in the story I wrote last week, I mean, it really looks like Douglas and Dunbar from the 43rd and 42nd region are pointed to matching up in the region finals. I would imagine it would take somebody else stepping up beyond what I've seen so far this year to take them. Great Crossing has developed a pretty good tradition over there. They didn't have enough for Dunbar a couple of weeks ago. But again, that doesn't mean anything. It's a long season. They've still got a month and maybe a couple of weeks to prepare. So, but that's how I see it. Dunbar's got everything you need, and so does Douglas. They've got height. They've got great setters. They've got the kids who can dig the ball out of the back, and they keep points alive. Like one of the things that was really remarkable when I watched that Dunbar and Douglas game is, even though Dunbar seemed to be the more aggressive team, Douglas could keep almost every point alive. They just kept digging kills out one after the other, and as you can stay in a point and kind of wear the other team down, that goes a long way. And it was, that's one thing that really struck me about Douglas, is they can absolutely keep points alive with good blocks and good digs, and just, they there's some long rallies in that game.
Yeah, it's it's kind of interesting hearing Douglas as a volleyball school when that tide on that side of town has always been Henry Clay, but. Of course, you got Douglas football.
Sometimes
there.
that dog catches the car.
That's true.
Sometimes the dog.
Well,
but it's
Station
always been
was
Dunbar.
good a
It's
couple
always
years back, weren't they? Wasn't Bryan Station good a
No,
couple years
Bryan
back?
Station was exceptional last year, and they won a district title last year.
Okay.
But they graduated their 3 D1 players. They had 3 D1 players on that team, on Bryan Station's team last year, and so now, kind of, the cycle in all sports is like, if you ever have a moment where you've got a bunch of seniors and they're leading the team and you're great, if sometimes, when they cycle out, it takes a bit, because maybe, other players didn't feel like they were getting their time there, and maybe they didn't stick with it, or maybe they transferred or whatever. But it's a huge dynamic to be able to keep a roster just build, reloading and reloading and reloading. Not a lot of teams can just keep reloading. Henry Clay did it for years, and now they can't. They haven't been able to keep that level up there that they had, because they reached the state semifinals and the state final, and that cycle went for a long time, and it was an awesome job. But now we're seeing where. It's kind of, after their state semifinals appearance last year, they're kind of in a rebuilding mode. And you hate to say that for the players that are there, but it's just the way that it's turned out. And, everybody's trying hard, but sometimes it's just harder to compete at that high level for such a long time. Dunbar's been able to do it, but there are not many teams that have been able to do it.
Speaking of Douglas over there, their soccer team's pretty good. Omar's got a really good squad over there with him.
Yeah, and he's the one that's been able to build his roster and keep that roster. He has 18 seniors, and I cannot even imagine what it is like to manage 18 seniors on a varsity team. He had 10 returning starters, including a junior, Cooper Ranvier, who is the place kicker for the football team. But he's an excellent forward. They're really good. They beat Henry Clay 4-1 a couple of weeks ago. I had Derek Terry, who was used to write for Rivals. He covered that game for us, and that was a good game. But right now, with Douglas having so much senior leadership and just physical ability and an aggressive style, they play really aggressively. They get after you. I mean, if you haven't gone to see a high school soccer game, it's physical and it's fast, and especially at the highest level. And Douglas right now, I think, was ranked number 4 in the state. They passed up Dunbar. So Dunbar is number 5 and Douglas is number 4. And Lexington Catholic, who Douglas tied with last week, is around number 10. But it's a fast, physical, exciting game. People talk about, soccer being boring or whatever. Soccer is, and the scores being low. It's like, look, a football game that's 21-14 is actually 3-2. Come on.
Right. That's a good point.
You're just making up numbers at that point. It's like, is a 21-14 football game a pretty good game? Yes. Well, then so is a 3-1 soccer game or a 3-2 soccer game. Those are pretty good games. So Douglas won 4-1 against Henry Clay last week, and kind of sealed up the 42nd district regular season championship and a top playoff seed. So they're going to be almost a shoe-in to get into the region, and they're going to be tough when they get there. Dunbar can maybe handle them. They're not, Lexington Catholic played them tight, but there are not a lot of teams that are going to be able to handle Frederick Douglass boys soccer this year.
Okay.
And then on the girls' side, I mean, I've seen Lexington Catholic girls, and they're pretty special. Mary Martin Hampton, they call her Marty. She's she's pretty daggone good. She kind of reminds me of Chelsea Smith when Chelsea played up at or Kennedy Tranter. You know, both of those girls were big time scorers for Lexington Catholic. She fits right in that role.
Yeah, I mean, she's not as physical as Kennedy Tranter was, but she's certainly, they're blazing fast, and they're moving Catherine Truitt up to the midfield to go alongside Olivia Bretz. Was kind of a game changer for me for them. They have two just big physical central midfielders who can interchange and dominate the playing field. Now, you know, they got beat by Sacred Heart. They're going to face a tough test on Saturday against Notre Dame, which I'm going to go to that game. That's going to be like a top 5 matchup in the Lady Night Challenge Cup on Saturday evening. Are you going to be there, William?
Yeah, we'll live stream that.
Yeah, and so that's a, you know, the Lady Night Challenge Cup every year is a state tournament preview. I mean, the teams in there are fantastic. Lexington Catholics messed around playing, you know, they play 4 in the back, but the 2 on the outside on the defensive line don't really play defense. They're on the attack. They're up, pushed forward, and they constantly keep pressure on their opponents, and that's why they win. You know, they're going to Fleming County tonight, and I'm sorry, Fleming County. I'm sorry.
How long of a drive is that?
That's going to be a. Well, I don't know, but you know, they're in this 2A championship, and they're a little too much for the 2A championship teams that are also there. I mean, unless Bethlehem or Bethlehem jumps into the 2A, there's not a lot of soccer teams that can hang with Lexington Catholic around the state. I mean, Lexington Catholic, there's a reason why they've won 3 straight region titles and have been to the state quarters and semis going on a few years now. They're hard to deal with. Now, you know, Sacred Heart's another level. Notre Dame last year was like one of the best girls soccer teams in years. That team was ridiculous.
Yeah, they were special.
And so that was a very special team. So I'm interested to see what they brought back, you know, on Saturday night. But yeah, Lexington girls soccer is a different deal.
Yeah, I saw Notre Dame the other night. Was it 2 nights ago? I guess maybe. Yeah, 2 nights ago. They look pretty good. I mean, they won their game, and you know, obviously they still have all that talent up front. You know, when you talk about you know, 2 big teams colliding, when you see Catholic and Notre Dame collide on Saturday, you're going to see a lot of opportunities, I think. So both keepers will probably be busy.
Yeah. Last year, we're used to seeing Catholic kind of dominate the run of play in girls soccer around here when the teams they play. I mean, it's hard for other teams to get the ball even in the offensive half. I mean, they just lean into you. And against Notre Dame last year, Notre Dame did that to them. So imagine the step up and play you have to have in order to treat Lexington Catholic like Lexington Catholic treats everybody else. That was a special team. So I think it's more level. I think the teams at the top can play with each other more now. Lexington Catholic is probably this run with this senior class is probably the end of this cycle for them. I mean, I think they'll be good next year, but I think next year more teams will be able to catch them inside the region than maybe they can this year. I mean, Lafayette lost one of the best players, decided not to continue playing in her high school career. She's going to be a Division I college player, Brooke Daher. She decided it was best for her to sit out this season. Hopefully she comes back next year. But Lafayette's still really, really talented.
Is that the sister?
Not quite to the level.
Is that the sister of the Daher kid that plays for Lexington Catholic now, football?
That's right. He's a linebacker for Lexington Catholic. His younger sister is a junior at Lafayette, and she is she's been in U.S. national team camps. She's been, she's a 3-star recruit according to TopSoccer.com. She's been one of the best midfielders in the nation of her age group for a number of years now. She was the region I think she was co-region player of the year last year, and she was city player of the year last year as a sophomore. And she doesn't score a whole lot. She got that based strictly off her level of play and how people see her creating chances for others and basically creating her own chances. I mean, she's not a big time scorer, but she's a big time player.
Yeah.
And she's one of the reasons why she's sitting out this year. I did a story on this earlier this year, is because she's been playing with college level club teams up through the summer, almost to tryouts.
So this is kind of like a rest.
And she wants to pick her. Yeah, she wants to visit colleges, work out for colleges, spend this time this fall figuring out where she wants to go to college, and in order to do all the things she does at the national level, and in order to make those college visits, that cuts. She couldn't go to all the practices. She couldn't be at some games. Her schedule was just too packed in order to be at, when you're a high school soccer player, that's 5-6 days a week that you're either practicing or playing. I mean, legitimately 5 days a week. I don't know how much. Yeah. It's the same with football and any other sport, but she couldn't do 5-6 days a week and do everything else she was doing. She's a phenomenal player. I hope she makes her college decision and comes back next year. And if she does come back next year to Lafayette, with the other players that would be around her, Lafayette's still really, really good without her. And if she comes back, they're gonna be a contender next year.
Wow. We got some people asking about what do we know about any football realignment yet? Is that something we can talk about just yet or no?
The football realignment is coming. I think that they're going to start looking at the numbers in the next couple of KHSAA meetings. I think that's a side committee deal. That is, they basically look at the enrollments. I believe they're not counting the 2020 enrollment because of how whack that was. So they're doing 2 enrollments for this year. This year's counts twice, and then the 2019 enrollment, I think. One of the years counts twice. So maybe it's 21 that counts twice, and then 22 counts once. That's all technical nonsense. Anyway, what I'm saying is they're realigning this fall. The numbers will probably come out either in November or January of November of this year or January next year, and we'll know what the classes are by early next year. But if people are wondering, most likely Frederick Douglass will be moving up to 6A. Yeah. I don't see how they don't move up to 6A.
Well, a lot of people are saying Catholic's going to move down to 3A too, is what we're being told.
I think Catholic could have been 3A this year or in this last cycle, but in the 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, there's flexibility there as whether, do you want to play up? Like if teams want to play up into 4A, you can request to play up into 4A. You can't request to play down. If you're in 4A and you want to request up to play in 5A, you can request up, and they'll consider it. I think one of the 2 teams, like Scath or Boyle County, might have requested up just to stay together, but I'm not sure of that. That was before my time. I've only been around 3 years, so I wasn't around for the last classification cycle.
Well, that's one of the things.
In the middle classes, there's some leeway.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's going around is Boyle County's enrollment's kind of grown. So they would have no choice but to stay in 4A now, and then Lex Cath would go to 3A. So that would ultimately split them up. But is there any opportunity? Is there any opportunity for LCA, who's grown in enrollment? They're turning away kids right now, is what I'm being told. At LCA is they're just they've got way too many. Is there an opportunity for them to move up to 3A? And then you have that Catholic LCA now in the same class.
In the same class, maybe even the same district. That would be fun.
That'd be big time.
I mean, from what I understand, they take, they set up the 1A classification with 30 teams, and they set up the 6A classification with 30 teams, and then in the middle, they divide up the rest. And then there's play either way. Now, does LCA want to move up to 3A? I don't know if LCA wants to move up to 3A. Maybe they do. They've certainly had some success. 3A is pretty competitive, although it's, the championship game in 3A last year was the best championship game. Paducah Tillman Belfry was the best championship game. But I don't know that 3A is the most competitive division. I think, 2A's, well, 2A is competitive at the top. But, it just depends. It's just, we'll have to wait and see on that one. I would be interested to see what they do and what's offered to them, because it just depends on how those numbers play out when they look at the enrollments this fall.
Yeah, I had somebody asking how do we all balance our life outside of sports around our work. You want to lead off with that?
Yeah, I was going to say that's a Jared Peck question, because this dude, man, I don't know how he does it.
He's like the Iron Man.
I'm doing a lot of talking here.
He's the Iron Man. We'll let you lead off here, Coach.
Well, I'm just, I don't do the whole, Jared Peck's doing like football, basketball, soccer, volleyball, all in one. And he's on a podcast right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So I'm just letting this the hardest working man in sports right now. Me, I just kind of balance it out. I have different times and fill in whenever I can, doing what I do. It's more of I don't want to say a hobby for me, but it's not my sustaining income, So
yeah.
That's with me. I just kind of I fill in where I can, get in when I can.
It's more about a passion of love. For
there
you
you go. It is my passion. It is my passion. I love it. I love meeting the kids. It's really grown from where my son played. Shout out to Ohio Dominican. He's there now playing his senior year. And just getting the kids their recognition, letting them get exposure. And I enjoy that. Most of these kids that are playing now, I've coached a lot of them, when they were 6, 7 years old on up to now, So I've watched them grow up, and it's just been fun for me.
Yeah, and I mean for William, if you're not hustling, you don't eat. So you got to stay after it. It's like I could back off and not do something. I wouldn't have to go to the Catholic game on Saturday if I didn't want to. But it is a tough balance. I was in London yesterday doing a story on North Laurel, because them beating Johnson Central last week kind of stuck out to me. That score was 15-14 North Laurel. They won that at home, and they won it in the last quarter, few minutes of the fourth quarter.
I missed
that was
one.
An interesting story to me.
Seriously?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That happened?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We have had some interesting games this week. This year so far.
You can read about it in tomorrow's Herald Leader there, Truck. It'll be
okay. I'm gonna have to.
It's online. It's online right now. But that was really interesting to me. So I drove down to London yesterday and talked to Coach Appel, and that was fun. I went to a volleyball game on Tuesday. I map out what I do. So I try to see, there are 27 teams, boys soccer, girls soccer, and volleyball, and I try to see every one of them, regardless of how well their season's going. If I have an idea of their season's not going to go so well, I try to see them early. But for boys soccer, I haven't really even gotten around to yet. I've seen 2 boys soccer games, I think. And so I'm waiting on that until next week. I'm going to hit boys soccer pretty hard. I've seen most of the girls soccer teams. I've seen three-quarters of the volleyball teams. And then I've seen all the football teams play, but Lafayette and Tate's Creek. And I think and Sayre. I haven't seen Sayre yet. I'm going to get a Sayre game in. But it's hard to do. It's hard to juggle. It's hard to keep, people happy. People think I play favorites. It's like, well, you got to win. And it's like, I can beat
Say that again. Say that again, Jared.
You gotta win.
You gotta win, baby.
Sayre hasn't really played. That Frankfurt game last week was a game that I could have covered, but there were other kind of games that I was interested in as well. And so, Sayre Frankfurt wasn't on the front burner for me. And then you have this week it's an impossible choice, because we have Christian Academy Louisville at LCA, but then the next week LCA and Lexington Catholic play. So do I hit the Lexington Christian teams 2 weeks in a row? When I've already done Lexington Christian, we've already done Lexington Christian like once and a half. So this week I'm going to Scott County, and I'm either going to write a story about how Bryan Station is back, and they've shrugged off those 2 losses to start. I mean, they've only played the number 2 and number 3 team in the state in their first 2 games, and they're taking on like number 20 Scott County this week. Or it's going to be about how Scott County is back, and Scott County, was 6-6 last year, which was an anomaly, and they've looked pretty good. They avenged 1 loss. They lost to Franklin County last year, and they beat Franklin County this year and avenged that loss. They lost to Bryan Station last year. Are they going to avenge the Bryan Station loss this year up at the Bird's Nest at Great Crossing? We shall see. I mean, that's the thing I'm interested in. There are a ton of great games this week. It's an unbelievable amount of games, and I know you're carrying probably the LCA game and the Lexington game, William, and you still do some Warren County stuff down there. You got a Warren County game this week?
We've got Warren County football game. I have to look on there and see which one it is, but we got a crew down there that does that with the public schools there in Warren County. So basically, it's Greenwood, Warren Central, South Warren, and Warren East. The 4 schools down there that we cover. But,
Warren Central got their first win in like 3 or 4 years earlier this season.
It was 7 years,
that was
right?
good. 7 years? It was a long, stupid time.
They had been
somebody
going
broke
through
a mirror.
coaches quite crazy, though, wasn't they?
Hey, somebody broke a mirror. It was 7 years worth of bad luck, right? Goodness.
They do okay on the basketball side, though.
Yes.
State finals last year.
They did.
Yes. I love their coach. Basketball coach, man. Great interview.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So my fall plan for me personally is, I've kind of camped out at LCA and Lexington Catholic, as you guys can imagine. We already had our fall thing in, like you reported on, Jared. We already had our fall schedule out, so that was kind of set in stone. But I have been a really good dad because I've, and you know this too, Jared, and planning around when you got kids that play sports, you don't want to miss those games. So it's like, man, every Tuesday, you're not going to find me at a game Tuesday unless it's, huge matchup that I just can't afford to miss. But my daughter's playing softball every Tuesday night, so there's no way you're going to find me out on Tuesday right now for the next few weeks anyway. But,
and my daughter's now at Michigan State, but when she was in high school and playing for Lafayette soccer, I wasn't able to get to as many games as I would like to because, of course, I've got to watch my daughter play soccer. So I don't have that problem this year. So now I've had a little more flexibility. I've gotten to volleyball a little bit earlier this year than I did last year. So that's been good.
And you got to prioritize.
Yes,
they always,
sir.
family always needs to come first, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Faith, family, then everything else, right?
Having 2 grown kids myself, I had a football player. My daughter did some of everything, but she was mainly a cheerleader, so that kind of was cool. But yeah, man, absolutely got to support the kiddos. I got a 9-year-old now, so right now she's real big in karate. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So what else is going on with you guys? I know Coach Truck and Big Things Kentucky's doing pregame shows right now. You're going to be either at Catholic or LCA, right?
We'll be at the Catholic or LCA. We've been doing some little pieces. I need y'all to check us out. We got we're doing a piece on our offensive linemen, what we've been featuring. We've been wanting to play it during our pregame shows, but we haven't been able to get through it for technical difficulties for one reason or another. But we'll be putting those out. Shout out to the linemen. I know they're kind of like, man, where's my, it ain't too often the linemen get some shine.
Yeah.
So they're like, man, where's my video? It's coming, guys. It's coming. Like you say, man, it's been a big week. This week we got some great matchups. Last week we had some good matchups that didn't turn out to be great games necessarily. But I'm looking forward to this week's games.
Big Tom. I know Coach Truck and Coach Bew, they do a great job promoting the kids out there. You guys have certainly put in the work. I see you guys everywhere we go, it seems like. Well,
if it's a big game, PrepSpin's going to be there. And Jared, too. Jared sat down with us last week, man. Tell us about this. The Woodford-Dunbar game What happened, man? I mean, is Woodford that good? I guess they're that good.
I think Woodford go 10-0, man.
Yeah, I like them. We are doing really great. We really are, Buford.
Well, Dunbar turns. The reason why I was at that game is because the way Dunbar played Madison Central.
Yes.
They forced 3 turnovers, and they were in that game right up until the end.
Mm-hmm.
And Madison Central was able to squeak it out. But I felt like that showed that they could hang. And to be fair, Dunbar, that game wasn't gone in the first half. I mean, it was like 22-7 or something like that. Dunbar had moved the ball, and then things kind of snowballed in the second half when the kickoff return happened, and then I think they onside kicked it. They pooch kicked it and got another possession and came right down the field. And then all of a sudden, a 2-touchdown lead becomes a 4-touchdown lead, and then that game is over.
RC Cole's out.
So, but with Douglas District's schedule, I think if they came out healthy from that, they could certainly learn from that Woodford game. Woodford County is, with that quarterback that played Nason, who went for like 200 and I'm not sure, but Mackay Smith, sensational player. Preston Stacy was a 1,600 yard back last year. I mean, they've got everything they need.
Hayden.
The difference this year is they're not as big physically on the defensive and offensive line as they were last year. And it's like, can they compensate for that? Is that going to hurt them down the stretch? Well, it might, because the other team that they'll be competitive with in Class 5A doesn't have really those offensive line, defensive line problems. Frederick Douglass has got some dudes in the trenches. And so can Woodford County match up with those dudes when the time comes? We shall see. One of the things we saw when Douglas played Bryan Station, I think the Fox Channel did a pregame deal with them. They were in the locker room before that Bryan Station game, and Coach McPeak challenged his players, just like, if you're a D1 guy, you've got to play like you're a D1 guy.
Yeah.
This is the time. All right? And that's got to be the mantra for them every week.
Mm-hmm.
They've got all those accolades. They've got all those offers. But that doesn't get them a W at the end of the day on the football field. When that clock strikes 0, they've got to prove that they're that guy when they get out there. Because there'll be plenty of people telling them. There'll be plenty of people like Boyle County last year. Came out there and they didn't care about those offers. They didn't care about all the hype. They came out there to show them that they had something going on too.
Yeah.
And that's. You want to know one game I'm going to be at at the end of October? It's going to be Frederick Douglass at Boyle County. I'm going to be at that game.
Yeah.
That might be. Is this the year that Douglas gets Boyle?
Well, Boyles beat them every time they played them, right?
Yeah.
I think they beat them like the first year they played them, or was that Danville? I think
that was Danville the first year.
Now they played twice. I think it'll be a more competitive game this year. Boyle County really jumped on Douglas last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they caught a break. I think they did an onside kick, or they did some sort of pooch kick where they got the ball right back and just put another touchdown on them.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out with a chip on their shoulders big time to show Frederick Douglass who the best team on that field was that day.
Yeah.
They were out to prove a point, and they proved it. So I'm interested to see the response from Douglass and how those dynamics and how that bravado plays out at the end of this season. And the other thing to worry about is, that's right before playoffs. I mean, that's going to be the last best test. It's going to be the best test Douglas gets before the playoffs.
So you don't see them having a challenge this week? You don't see them having a challenge this week? Having not played. Are they rusty? Dunbar maybe coming off a disappointing win. Do you don't just stop, huh? Jerry's looking at me like, please stop. It's not going. No.
Hey, I don't discount anybody's chances to do anything. You got to line up and play, and if you don't show up that week, people are going to beat you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it goes. It's like if you don't show up to play, you can get beat. So Douglas has that going. Douglas has to play their opponent, and they have to play their expectations.
Yes.
It's like, did they beat Dunbar by enough?
Yes.
Did they do this enough?
Yes.
Did they look impressive enough?
Yes.
That's what Douglas is chasing each week. In addition to just trying to beat the other team, they've got to beat the other team in a certain way in order to maintain that charisma or whatever.
Yes.
The aura around them. And that shouldn't matter. But people, what would happen if Dunbar won that game or kept it within 1 or 2 touchdowns? People would be losing their minds, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They'd be losing their minds.
Yeah. Yes. It's almost like they've got you know how the Cowboys said that they were America's team, and they had that whole thing when Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and all those guys was with them.
Well, we do represent the 859. I think we are Douglas. We
and
are
we
the
need to keep
859's
things in
team.
perspective.
Is it the city's team? That's the thing.
Yes, we are the city's team. I mean, it's Douglas.
We come on.
I'm just saying.
The thing to
Well,
keep
I
in
think it's
perspective
between them
here
and
is
LCA.
These are high school kids. And, when they get in those big games, they're still high school kids.
Yeah.
And so people want to knock on Douglas for not winning it all. It's really tough to win it all.
Absolutely.
It's really, really, really tough.
Absolutely.
It's not an easy thing.
Absolutely.
And, you think that with all this talent and all this whatnot, it's like, no, you got to strap up and play.
Yep.
Sometimes the ball bounces the wrong way. Sometimes the best player on the field shows you who they are. And that's what happened to Douglas with Michael Meyer and Covington Catholic.
Man,
and that's
Michael
what happened
Meyer.
with South Warren last year and Caden Veldkamp. Caden Veldkamp was the difference in that game.
Yeah.
He made passes
Yes,
into
he did.
areas that should not have been caught.
On 3rd and 4th downs too,
Yeah, and I mean, and he just made plays, and his receivers made plays. Like one of the touchdowns that went from Veldkamp to one of the kids at the end zone, that was an impossible throw and catch, and they made it. So, my hat's off to Frederick Douglass every year for playing at the level that they play at, and really doing it, basically playing against teams that really can't hang with them during the season. They've got to get up for all those games when, it's not the Woodford County, it's not kind of Southwestern, it's not South Warren. It's teams that they are expected to beat. And so that takes a level of concentration that I think is pretty admirable as well.
Big time performance. We go back to that Dunbar Woodford County game. Nason, the quarterback for them. This is his plaque. We didn't get a chance to. Give it. You know how big Dunbar is over there.
Yes.
By the time you get down, off of those big bleachers there, and you get down, Woodford had split basically by the time we had an opportunity to present them with this. So I need to catch up with you. Is it Andrew? Is that who he is?
Andrew Nason.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I let Coach know. Yeah, he did a great job for us, man. We and the thing about it was that was the first game that he started and played completely, himself. He had been splitting time with
He's
Johnson's
just a sophomore,
son.
right?
Yes, he's just a sophomore. Dennis Johnson's son, his name slipped my mind.
The Jasper,
and they've been splitting time. Actually, the game before that, Jasper threw 3 passes, 3 touchdowns, and 100-some yards.
Wow.
But he didn't play this week, so man, that I'm telling you, we got some talent for this Woodford County team. It's I mean, outside, inside,
Wait,
the line.
I thought we was Douglas.
I thought we was Douglas too.
Hey, we winning, we riding. I just want y'all to know I'm loyal to the win. If you winning, I'm riding. So, some people call it bandwagon, but hey, like somebody said in one of the main quotes, if it wasn't important, we wouldn't keep score, baby. So
It's the truck wagon is what it is.
Hey.
I like it though. I like it.
Because my running clock bandits, them Douglas Broncos, 85 Broncos, man, not being biased here now. I'm giving you a non-biased way of looking at things.
You're never biased, Coach.
No,
never biased.
but they're impressive against city schools. They've even beat the private schools.
What's most impressive is in your pack how many T-shirts you keep. That's what's most impressive. You're always at the ready with that whatever T-shirt. Always two T-shirts wherever you go.
Yeah, he's got yeah, you're right. Always two on, but you know there was one show that he peeled off 7 or 8 different shirts in one show that I saw.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, it's been fun though. Like I said, and just kind of looking ahead, I think these district games are going to be nice too. You know, just things coming ahead as we get ready for districts with GRC.
Yeah, that's another reason I'm going to the Scott County game this week. Is to just see what they got, and you know, kind of gauge, you know, where they are versus maybe where I think Frederick Douglass is. And then, you know, Clark County, you mentioned it, George Rogers Park.
That's the team that
Jericho's
intrigues
got
me
those
the
guys
most.
playing.
Yes.
Got those guys playing. I mean, I think, you know, we'll see a little bit more. We'll get a comparison because I think they're playing Madison Southern this week. And Madison Southern just took Madison Central to the wire last week. So if George Rogers Clark handles Madison Southern or doesn't handle them, that's going to say a lot about how they can play Madison Central and Bryan Station.
Well, I had to make some calls because I was like, what's going on with Madison Central, my cardiac Indians? But come to find out, Hensley's been hurt. So he hasn't really been playing.
He got dinged up.
Yeah, so, you know, and then they lost another couple players. So, you know, they haven't really been full strength. Because I'm kind of like you, man. I saw Madison Central in the preseason, and I'm all in with Madison Central. I like them to really challenge one of the big three in the playoffs, you know, when it gets to that point.
Well, they did last year. So,
yes.
You know, if but they got to get healthy. You can't do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're down a couple of their big guys right now. Be interesting to see how that all unfolds over there in Richmond.
And Coach Holcomb, man, just watching him work and coach, that's the one thing I love about what I've been able to do is see some of these, I guess we call them Hall of Fame coaches.
Yeah.
You know, and it's amazing. You know it when you see it. And you see some of these guys work and coach. And I like Doug Charles, man. Like you said, who would – you don't make him the head coach of that program. You know what I'm saying? That took guts for them to do that with his resume.
That's Terry Johnson, man. That's Terry listening to the people over there.
Who makes that call? You know, who does that?
I'm telling you, man, Terry Johnson is one of the best to ever do it.
Absolutely.
He's listening to his people over there that really look out for the program. So, yeah, you definitely need to recognize Terry Johnson on that.
And he's done an amazing job, and he's just a great coach. And you know, seeing him, Coach McKee, you know, I've been able to talk to Coach Haywood, all the state coaches that have.
Haywood's got the greatest voice.
Man,
I could sit there and listen to that guy forever.
Yes.
I mean, he's just. You ever talk to him, Jared? Coach Haywood?
I've talked to him a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of coaches who can will you across the goal line based on their personality and their drive and how they get you to run through a wall. And then there are coaches, you know, when you get a new coach, since they're fresh and that's a new voice in your head, you know, lots of times we see teams kind of rally around that and have a stretch where they're good. But the coach, you know, somehow being able to sustain it for 4 decades.
Yes.
like Haywood, 4 or 5 decades.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing a thing last year. It was like I was in high school when he was coaching Belfry in championships against Paducah Tillman. Paducah Tillman had been a power and then been nothing and then been kind of okay and then been nothing and then came back and were a powerhouse again over the past 4 decades, and Belfry had been there the whole time with almost no drop-off.
Yeah.
So that's incredible.
I was telling the coach earlier, you know, you talk about, you know, how LCA kind of manhandled Belfry there.
Yes.
Hey, Belfry's always, if you look back on the history of it, they've always started out slow. Their first 3 or 4 games, they usually take an L, but then the rest of the season they kick it in somehow, and I don't know how they do it, man, but
you know, that goes to show, you know, like those coaches, you know, like Coach Charles, you know, they don't schedule, you know, they schedule those testing teams.
They schedule the
They
big
play
ones.
the top teams, you know,
Yeah.
and
That's why I think Brown Station might be
wants
really
to schedule. Good. Yeah, everybody wants to schedule August Belfry. Nobody wants to schedule November, December Belfry.
Exactly.
August Belfry, you can handle. You're not ready for November Belfry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, man. Yeah, this has been good to talk with you guys today. As we approaching an hour right now on this thing, but man, I tell you what, we should probably try to do this more often.
Hey, I'm all in.
One of us three has a mobile studio.
He can just pull up, pick us up, huh, Jared?
Hey, you guys are welcome anytime. I'd love to. I'd love to do it. I mean, that's what it's here for, man. This is, when you talk about what it was meant to be, it's not just doing live games. I mean, that's why we put this whole podcast table in here and this whole setup. And my vision.
Your preseason thing with the coaches was great, and this is fun. And I'm available anytime you want to fire up one of these rectangles on the YouTube. I'm ready to go.
Likewise. Hey, you can always count on us.
Yeah, y'all gonna hear from me more often because that's right in my wheelhouse right now that I think I want to really concentrate on.
Man, I just want to say, just really the work you've done and how you've done it. You're an inspiration to us. As far as when I first started, me and you just kind of started doing this, and man, to watch where you've come from and what you've been doing, and how you've done all that, man. Coach Meehan, Coach Ball, we've seen them and everything you guys have done, man. PrepSpin is on top of things. We enjoy it, man. Love y'all broadcast and everything.
I appreciate that. We done it so long on house money, and I worked 5 years doing that whole thing for free, and I don't want to go on a big long story about it, but it's like what you guys do and what Jared does is just a passion for high school sports, and no matter what the next level may offer, this is what I feel like our purpose is covering high school sports, and I'm in my happy place there's nothing like a Friday night football game or a big basketball game here in the state of Kentucky that's at the high school level, and you guys know that. And I've grown to love soccer over the years. It's been good to get out there and do that. And not a lot of people, other than Jared and PrepSpin, really get out there and cover soccer. And to be able to give back to that sport has been a huge blessing for us. And but those folks up at the top, you can't do it without those folks.
Absolutely.
And that's
taking
your vision.
I'm gonna have to get me a bag of Mingy beef jerky before I walk out of here.
Hey, I got some over there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and Jared, I'll get you some too. But we're excited. Mingy's been a great partner, title sponsor for us for years, and we brought on UK Healthcare this year, and we certainly are grateful to BGO for their time with us. But UK is our new sports medicine provider, and Whitaker Bank and Clark's Pump and Shop. I want to thank them. And then we got a whole bunch of other sponsors as well. But I need to mention Lexington Diagnostic Center because they've been a great partner to us. But you guys know you can't do it without community support from the local businesses and
especially at the high school level.
Exactly.
It's getting so many cuts.
Everybody knows there's no money in the high school stuff.
Yes.
There's not, when we make our money at PrepSpin, I can tell you right now with 100% certainty, it's when we do those college events, every November that we kind of make a harvest on. And that's really what it is. So, but anyway, I think I draw that out a little bit longer than I needed to. Jared, man, I love you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. And I hope we can do this more often, like I said, and Coach Truck, especially you, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm proud of you guys for, getting out there and hustling every day and doing it, for the right reasons. Because there's a lot of I don't want to mention names, but there's a lot of folks out there that pretend to be.
We ain't got to do it like
but they're
that.
not. You know what I'm talking about.
I understand completely what you're saying. Jared, all I want to say is, man, so when you back in town by halftime, or the second quarter, you know, come check us out wherever you gonna be, because you'll be back in town early. Come on back into town. You know, I'm not making no predictions or nothing, but you know,
You're calling RC here.
I'm just saying, you know, I appreciate you for going and giving my Cardinals. I'm just saying, I appreciate you for giving my Cardinals some coverage, you know, because we've been flying under the radar. You know, everybody's like 6-6. Coach McKee is dried up, you know. Oh, the great crossings, you know, they trying to put dirt on us, man. I don't understand that. But I think we're going to wake some people up this week.
That needs to be a unique
I am
plaque.
due for a great game. The last few years, whenever I picked a game, that game was spectacular all the way to the fourth quarter, and I haven't had that yet in football.
I was finna say, Jared, you was at the game last week.
It's been over in the first half. It's been over the first half, each of the first 3 games. I am due for a great game, and I expect to see one Friday night.
All I'm going to say is we're going to get you a RC Cola shirt and send you the game.
He needs to do a unique thing that only Big Things Kentucky hands out, and that's an RC plaque from Crown Trophy.
Hey, somebody give them a cooler
every time we
get
one.
Man.
That'd be awesome.
Well, we're going to have to stencil some people's names on them for real. Douglas and Woodford County, they got stock in RC Cola right now.
Oh, goodness.
Y'all take care.
Yes,
hey,
sir.
You
too, man.
Thanks, man.
And appreciate y'all, man. Thank you so much.
Coach Truck, appreciate you.
And always, we winning, we riding, baby.
That's right.
We out.
Not yet. Just hang tight. I'm gonna stop it over here. I'm used to producing everything over here. I need to get me a button over there, Coach.